Hello Internet, my name is Zephyr and today I'm going to attempt to solve the mystery of who Zeta Prime is. Let's start with the basics. Zeta Prime is one of the original primes before Optimus. That part is pretty obvious. Every time he's featured in Transformers media, he's consistently depicted as such, so it's reasonable to believe that he's one of the original 13. Boom. Case closed. Pretty open and shut case, right? Well, it seems like not even Hasbro themselves know what they want to do with this character, and it's because of this that adds to the confusion. All we really know about the guy is that he's one of the former primes before Optimus. Everything else is up to interpretation. So to figure out who Zeta Prime is and where he fits into the lineage, we first have to take a look at all of his appearances across TF media and see how he was depicted in each one. His G1 depiction showed him as a primarily orange and blue bot with a very basic looking head, showing up in the flashback episodes of, well, G1. And for the longest time, this would be the only time we really saw him until the 2010s. Well, he was featured in the Transformers animated All-Spark Almanac, but he never officially made it into that show, and he did make appearances in the IDW comics. But it wouldn't be until 2010 where we saw the latest incarnation of Zeta Prime, because in 2010, we saw the release of what is still till this day, the best Transformers video game. And in it, we see a new version of Zeta Prime. Except it's actually not Zeta Prime, and it's really Sentinel Prime. You see, during this time period, Hasbro was working on what we now know as the Aligned Continuity, one continuous timeline for all Transformers media at the time. High Moon Studios, the creators of the game, thought that was stupid and didn't want to rewrite the game to fit into Hasbro's demands, but were ultimately forced to. And because the foundations of this new continuity is actively being written alongside the game, it led to some discrepancies and never got fixed and resulted in errors in the timeline. And this was the case with Zeta, aka Sentinel Prime. You see, because the game had already come out before they could make any changes, Hasbro had to get creative and make up the story that Zeta is a nickname or alternative identity for Sentinel Prime. And I won't lie, given Sentinel Prime's nature, I really like this explanation, as I could totally see him going through a whole identity change to make Cybertron forget him when he was still Sentinel Prime. And just like G1, that would also end up becoming the most widely accepted depiction of the character for a long time. Since then, he has made appearances in other Transformers media. For example, he was mentioned in Cyberverse, but I can't find any pics of him from Cyberverse, so instead, enjoy this nice artwork of him from Missocpus. But now, this is where the wrench has been thrown into my gears, because now we have to talk about Zeta Prime's most recent depiction in Transformers 1. Whether you loved or hated the movie does not matter, but there's a good chance that they might claim that this is the definitive new origin for the Transformers property. And if that's the case, then we have even more discrepancies on our hands, because the whole Zeta is Sentinel thing gets thrown right out the window. That's because in this movie, they are their own separate and distinct characters. In fact, during the flashback scene, we see Sentinel kill Zeta Prime. No, this is not Prima. As a matter of fact, Prima is also in this movie as his own separate character. This only further adds to the confusion, as Zeta Prime is said to be the first Matrix bearer, but in every major continuity, Prima is the first Transformer and the first bearer of the Matrix. So then who is it? It would be easy to write it off as it being the same character again like they did for Sentinel, but they didn't do that here. In this movie, they're all distinctly different bots, and because Zeta was the current Matrix bearer at the time, they clearly wanted to make him significant. So what now? Prima was the first Transformer and the first Prime, and Sentinel is, well, Sentinel. Meanwhile, Zeta is kinda just this Prime who's conveniently there to exist, sometimes serving as an interchangeable name for an already existing character. But not here. Not for this movie. I have a little theory as to what might be going on here. You see, in G1, the very first Transformer to carry the Matrix was not even a Prime. He was a very underwhelming bot named Primon, not to be confused with Prima. And that's where I feel like Zeta steps in. Instead of having this wimpy bot be the first Matrix bearer, they gave that origin to a still fairly niche bot, creating a difference between the three. If you notice, that's kinda the story that they've set up in Transformers 1. Zeta was the current Matrix bearer while still allowing Prima to be the first Prime. It's important to understand the difference between these two, because despite looking very similar to each other, it's Zeta who gets killed by Sentinel, not Prima. Okay, so we established what Zeta's role is as a Prime, but where does he slot in for the 13? Is he even a part of the 13? Could Zeta be like Nova or Omega Prime? Personally, I don't think so. My reason for this being that since he was prominently featured in a major Transformers movie and already has prior appearances, Hasbro clearly wants to do something with him, and they've been trying to figure out what. With this movie, I think they finally figured it out. So here's my theory. I believe that Hasbro took all of the most memorable story beats of his previous incarnations and combined them together for this new Zeta Prime, while also retconning Primon from G1 to give him a purpose. Because we never learn when Zeta actually became a Prime, he could have possibly been the newest member, making him the bearer of the Matrix, only to very fittingly be killed by who is essentially himself in another timeline. Which means that Zeta Prime is effectively the cliffjumper of the Primes, as he is designed to be destroyed, just like how he was in the Cybertron games, and just like how he was in this movie. I wouldn't be surprised if going forward they chose to depict Zeta and Sentinel as two separate Primes for the sake of Sentinel killing him to take his place. But that concludes my theory, and now I want to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Who do you think is Zeta Prime? And where do you think he slots into the 13 Primes lineage? Let's get a little discussion going. But most importantly, be sure to like and subscribe for more videos just like this one. And as always, thank you for watching.